Ahoy there, mateys! Welcome aboard the Riff Raff podcast. We are the pirates of the Neurospicy waters. Come along with us and hoist the sail. We're navigating life through story and tale. We'll help you embrace the way you're wired, sharing laughs and lessons to get you inspired. If you join us, we will help you see there are a lot of ways to sail the Neurospicy sea.
How exciting is that? Oh, and it's live streaming. Good morning and welcome to Across the Desk. And we are the Riff Raff. This is a new podcast that we are putting out there. And all of us kind of align with pirates. So I don't think I figured out my pirate name. Sydney, what's your pirate name?
My pirate name is Captain Glitter.
Captain Glitter. Oh, I like that.
And it's funny when you asked me last week, that's the first thing that came to mind. I kind of wanted to see what other people would say. And then I was like, always go with your gut is what I learned.
Well, that's a good opener for today's topic. Paul, what did you end up? You picked one.
Paul the Perpetually Distracted.
That's more of a Greek fighter name, but
I can't remember.
okay, now I feel like we need to find it, but we'll find it. I haven't figured mine out yet. Probably Buccaneer Lola or something like that, because that's my alter ego, who could be very piratey. So knowing Paul the way I know Paul will now go back through the chat and find where they put their
Because I'm distracted.
As he's currently doing.
ADHD. So yeah, if you're new to meeting Elizabeth, I'll speak for my own neurodivergence in that I am ADHD, late discovered through my son being diagnosed as autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic. My husband is dyslexic, so we knew one out of our two kids was going to have something, and Thomas got it all, plus a few other bonuses, but strongly suspect my daughter's neurodivergent in some capacity. We just haven't. She's very stubborn. I don't know where she gets that from. Thank you, Sydney. That was kind.
It's what you always say. You're like, I wonder where she gets it from.
It's knows. Yeah, I got that from Hannah Gadsby, who's awesome. Right. One of her things, she's like, You're not going to understand right now why I have sensory issues, but you will soon. And she happens to be an autistic Tasmanian comedian who's also a member of LGBTQ+, and she's just hysterical. I watch her all the time. So, Paul, did you find your pirate name?
The only other one I had was Captain Distracted.
I think that kind of sums it up.
That works.
We're going to have like 4 captains, which should be interesting for the podcast. But speaking of guts, so Sydney provided an awesome intro because, Sydney, what's our topic for today?
It is systemic harm, what not to do, and talking specifically about parents.
Parents. Oh, parents.
I'm not a parent.
You're not, but you've been parented.
I've been parented, and I've worked with parents of neurodivergent children for countless years.
Which has its own charm all by itself. So that's what we're jumping into today. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is because Paul and I are both parents. Not only are we neurodivergent ourselves, but all of our kids are neurodivergent in some capacity. And when you're in the thick of parenting, it can be a real challenge to slow down and, either see what other parents are doing or have time to care what other parents are doing or whatever that is. And then it also is influenced by how you were raised, right? So you can either choose to repeat some of the stuff your parents have done, or, maybe that didn't work out for you and you didn't know why at the time. So you decide to change some stuff. And I think all 3 of us have British background.
Yes, I believe so.
Which is next level for parenting, by the way.
Well, I have Scottish background.
That's even worse. or better, however you want to.
I think better, but
Better lore? Like,
Better more. I mean,
better lore. Like,
better lore. Yeah, well, the stories are legend. My husband's family is Scottish, so we're actually Campbells and Ploufs, and the Campbell clan, by the way, is very piratey. So that's what we're kind of jumping into today, because now I'm out of the active parenting phase. My kids are almost 28, almost 27.
are you though?
No, but I like to believe I am.
We tell ourselves we should be.
Yes, well, Paul is the parent of 4 who are all over the age of 18, is way more experienced and versed in multiple generation kids. But I think we're out of the figuring it out for the most part. Like, once Paul's blinking rapidly if you're not watching, meaning that those lessons that are so important when kids are little about emotional regulation, about responsibility, about accountability, about advocacy, about understanding, where your support is and all those types of things, about not consequences, but consequences, and about expectations. Like, that's all, for the most part. Like, we all run into unique situations as our kids age and they still live at home. Sorry, Sydney.
not a parent, but
No, but aren't you still living at home?
yes, I am still living at home. And
That's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
I feel like I have to parent my parents sometimes because they're figuring out their neurodivergentness. That's a whole other story.
But that's a cool say. I love that.
Yeah.
I never thought about that lens. Like, that's, if you happen to be a neurotypical with neurodivergent parents, that must be next level. Although unlikely.
It's unlikely.
Yeah. I feel like there's some generational
Or
skipping
like,
or adoption or something.
with me personally, like I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old, but now really coming into my own and really learning what it means to unmask and when it's safe to unmask. Like you said, it's unlikely that I would have a neurotypical parent or neurotypical child, and that it's interconnected. That usually neurodivergence is passed down. So by me unmasking more, I'm seeing my parents unmask more.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah.
And both Paul and I have experienced that, because I don't think either of us realized that our brains were a little funky until we started having kids
Hmm.
and until they started presenting. And then we went, interesting. Let's learn about that, shall we? So, one of the things I wanted to bring up was, well, no, we could talk about gentle parenting, but that would not be it. I don't think any of us were raised with the gentle parenting model. What I have found very interesting is working within a system that seems to lower expectations as soon as a neurodivergent diagnosis is brought into play, and how that could influence you as a parent. Because if you're unsure as a parent, or you weren't raised British, Scottish, or whatever, because let me tell you, folks, that's another thing. In my house growing up, and Paul and Sydney, I love your experience. My parents took no shit. You did what you were told. You didn't have to do it with a smile, but you didn't talk back. If you were told to do something, you did it. You were expected to get a job. You were expected to contribute to the house. My brother and I were expected clean the bathrooms, mow the lawn, take out the garbage, cook the odd meal, like, do all of that stuff. It didn't occur to us not to. And it didn't occur to me not to raise both of my kids that way, regardless, based on their capability. But I never assumed incapability, which I think is part of what we're talking about. Is Oreo waking up?
Yes. She's just stretching.
Oreo is Sydney's dog. So, Paul, what would you say?
I'm a dog parent.
I'm a dog. You are a dog parent, dog mama.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things that you said that struck a chord. Going back to when you were talking about how we discovered our own neurospiciness through the diagnosis of our kids or through that. But I think it goes deeper than that. When I was younger, like I look at, like we talked about this before, my report cards and my actions as a kid. And today I'm like, how did they not know that?
I know.
Right? Back then, you went to the doctor and you relied 100% on their knowledge of what was happening. It wasn't an information age. We couldn't, dive into an Encyclopedia Britannica to find out about autism or find out about ADHD. It was, your information came directly from the experts. We didn't
Well,
have
we're gonna use air quotes around that, folks. Thank you.
right. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted
Yep.
to know something about engineering, you went to an engineer. You wanted to know something about your health, you went to a doctor. We didn't have Google. We didn't have all these ways to find out and resources and knowledge coming at us from all these different angles. So we inherently know more than our parents did about different things, like about autism, about ADHD. And I think that really gives us a lens to look at. So we can't look back and say, well, Mom, Dad, why didn't you notice that I was ADHD? Well,
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
Not in a blaming way.
No,
Yeah.
no. I know that. I know. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, we have a much different, we just have it much different, right? Because of that.
We have a global Encyclopedia Britannica.
For those who don't know what those are, they're books that you had to look up alphabetically.
We had Duncan Wagnalls, I might add. I love those books. That's so true. And so City will jump into you, and that's thank you, Mark. Mark, oh my God, because I just there's a thing at the bottom of the screen that says Mark Clip, and then I looked at that, and then looked at Paul. I know Paul's name. So Sydney, what would you want to add to that? Or do you want to process?
Take process.
Okay.
There's some good nuggets there, Paul.
And it's very true, and it's nothing to do with. No, it is something to do with. It is generational learning. It is generational understanding. I think that's what, you know what? This is the first time I'm thinking this. I think that's what shocks me about parents who don't place expectations or, get their kids to do chores or all of that stuff now, because we know scientifically that having kids do chores that are age appropriate and skill appropriate from the time they're able to start doing that has a direct positive impact. Your dog is fine, Paul. It's okay. Has a direct positive impact on how they do in school, how they do at work, how they manage later in life. Like, there's a scientific correlation there, folks. We're not making crap up. Somehow we've lost that. And to your point, Paul, maybe there's too much knowledge. And somebody has read somewhere, oh, no, like, don't push little Johnny because little Johnny might have a temper tantrum. I don't know, whatever the reaction could be. I'm not trying to
have a meltdown.
Might have a meltdown. And meltdowns are hard. Don't get me wrong. I got really lucky. My son never had a meltdown. Like he's just an easygoing guy, and I never had to deal with massive behaviors. So that made it a lot easier for me. So I'm in no way saying my experience is everybody's experience. But I think when we're afraid of what might happen, we don't focus on what could happen. If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Right? If we're afraid of a meltdown or our kids not liking us or, temporary uncomfortableness, then we just do it for the kid. And then they get to like 20 odd and they can't do squat. Oh, Paul's laughing. Okay,
yeah,
tell me more.
I had a really interesting experience yesterday. I was teaching a course on knowledge transfer on technical trainer effectiveness. It's a workshop that I do. And we got to talking about, what it's like to be a trainer now versus a trainer. How we were trained. We were yelled at by people and all this kind of stuff. And it came up. One of the people shared that they fired an individual, and later that day, their mother showed up to HR. Like, who does that? Like, what have we become? That, a 20 some odd year old employee gets fired and his mother shows up to HR? Like, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And did they show up? Was the kid fired with a valid,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Her little sunshine didn't deserve that?
But even if he wasn't, that's a life lesson he needs to deal with.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he needs to be, if he doesn't have the tools to deal with it, then he needs to be taught the tools to deal with it.
I did do that once. I didn't show up to HR. No, husband actually called. It was because husband was,
Yeah.
and it's very rare that my husband, he's not a conflict kind of guy. I don't mind. I was that mom during school and we are going to be talking about parents, schools, and then service providers. So from my side of the desk as a parent, my role in the school was to constantly go in and mitigate their damage about creating learned helplessness in my kid. Because we were doing so much at home, and then they would let him get away with murder at school. And I'd be like, no, you're undoing everything that he can do. So with home, and husband was never involved with that. He'd come to the meetings and things like that, but I was the one that would mitigate that risk. So when he stepped up with Home Depot and said, I'm calling, I took that very seriously, because it's not very often that he would step in like that. So no, for the most part with Thomas, if you're fired, you're fired. Like, it's your failure to figure out, and we'll support you. And
yeah, we have to be advocates, especially when our kids are in school age. We have to learn when to
back off.
Back off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I taught medical office administration for a couple of years. And part of that was getting individuals ready for working in a medical office, which was my career for many years. And reflecting now, there was a student in my class who was absolutely on the spectrum. 100%. Like, I was sitting at my desk doing whatever. And this is a singular example, which does not apply to everybody in the class or anybody on the spectrum. And she saw, I don't know, like a fleck of wax or something in my ear. Now, I don't know if it was an ADHD thing. I don't know what. She decided it was a good idea to stick her finger in my ear and flick out like whatever she saw in my ear.
Goodness.
And there was a few other instances where I either had to take her out and have a chat with her about language choice or behavior or whatever that was. Well, then she got set up for an interview, and she took her mom with her to the interview. And we won't be shocked to determine that she did not get the job. And that should have been a teachable moment for the mom to go, you can handle this. That's one of the things I'm realizing, is that the more we do things for kids and don't put expectations, we're teaching them that we don't believe in them. We're teaching them that they're not capable. And that's, Sydney, can you do me a favor?
Yes.
And when you come out for Employment Works, can you share for the folks what your journey is to come out to Employment Works? Like the geography and the travel and stuff that you have to do.
Do you want to say it now? Or?
I do.
Quite extensive. But I'm an adult. I make adult decisions, and it's only once a week on Tuesdays. And so I was like, it is worth it to go once a week and do this long trek. And so I have to wake up between 4:45 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning, and then get ready. I usually take like 30 minutes or so to get ready, depending. And then I have to take a bus to the train station, and that bus comes at 5:50 in the morning, and I have to walk 10 minutes to get to that stop before I even get to the bus stop. And then I get to the train station around 5:58, 6 a.m. And the train comes at 6:14. The first train comes at 6:14 a.m. And then I have to go down to Toronto's Union Station. And then from there, I take another, it's like 50 to 55-minute train. And then Elizabeth graciously picks me up from the train station. And then we have to drive to where we deliver Employment Works for another approximately 6 minutes.
Part's not, that part's not terrible, but
Yeah.
we had a situation in Employment Works where somebody shared about, like, it was the effort around getting a job or what have you. And that's my warning telling me that I need to move. And I already knew Sydney's story, right? And just to recap, Sydney is on the spectrum, also has a physical challenge, navigating a lot of stuff. And Sydney also never knows when she has a lovely cane named Franny.
I do.
And we never know when Franny's going to come out to play. So when I go to pick Sydney up from the train and I see Franny, I know it's been an extra hard trip that day. So either the weather's playing havoc or whatever's going on, and Sydney still makes it. I don't think you haven't canceled once.
It's, again, I made a commitment and to you and to the team and to our participants. Unless I'm really not doing well, I will not cancel. And that's how I was raised. It's like if you make a commitment, I knew that's what you, um, like even when because again, like you mentioned, I live at home with my parents. Be like, are you sure you want to take this job? Like, is it worth it to you? I was like, maybe if it was every day of the week, I'd be like, that's not worth it. No offense,
No,
Elizabeth,
I would tell you it wasn't worth it. Yeah.
and but to go once a week, I mostly work remotely, so I was like, it's a nice change of pace. I'm passionate about what we're offering our participants and what this could, what this could mean for other participants and really helping them in this way and helping neurodivergent folks like me in a new way. And so I did a cost analysis of and pros and cons, and really and I was like, yeah, it's worth it to me. And I know if something does come up, or even when I have been delayed by transit, I send Elizabeth a message because it's that courtesy and letting you know, right? And so that's how I was raised. You make a commitment and you stand by it, and things happen, life happens, we know life happens. You just communicate that to the individual. And I even get the train. I arrive at the last train stop at 8:10. Our program starts at 9:30. But I do that so in case something happens with me or with the transit itself, I'm still there on time. There's two other trains I could have potentially gone in if I am running late, or if the trains are, because transit's not always reliable. I have that cushion to make sure I am there in time to deliver the program.
And what would you say growing up? So I thank you, and I'm glad you knew where I was going. But what would you say the influence growing up with your parents was so that you understood you had the competency to manage all of that?
I think,
It's a lot of skill building.
yeah, I think my parents were always aware, like through chores, I mean, and through if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and because they led by example, right? And so, especially my dad, I could see he made a commitment to do something on the weekend, but he's like, when the weekend comes, he's exhausted from working in the week. He's like, I made that commitment. I have to go. I'm feeling okay. I made that commitment. I have to show up for this person. Right? Because for example, he actually helped my mom's family a lot with different things, like moving and different errands. And so he's like, I made a commitment to them that I'm going to help them move into their new house. so I'm going to do it, even though I just want to lie on the couch and do nothing. I made a commitment, so I'm going to do it. And so having that example, just like you do what you have to do, but you also communicate what you have to communicate, and also that understanding that I think I've had to learn like putting my own needs first, but what does that look like? Right. And so it's like you have to show up for other people and do what you say you're gonna do, but also do the reflections like, and how can you take care of yourself to be able to show up for other people?
And that's a topic that we've covered in Employment Works. And we had an interesting session. Thank you for that, by the way. And I have another question, but it
Hmm.
ties into, we had a session a few weeks ago with our Employment Works participants and put up the topics. So I have a friend, Jason Little, who works on our team as well. And he taught me a whole bunch of agile tools that have come in extremely handy. So we wrote out all of the topics that we did for Employment Works, put them up on the board, and then asked our participants to vote on them. And of course, they voted high on the employment focused ones and a few other things. And they kind of downvoted managing burnout and taking care of themselves and whatever. And if I remember it correctly, when we organized everything, Maddie and Sydney and I had a moment and went and pointed out to folks that when you don't take care of yourself and you don't whatever, that you can't achieve the other things. So we're going to continue working on that. What do you think would have happened if your parents hadn't helped you? I want to say, that doesn't sound right. Not help you believe in yourself, but it wasn't just their example that made you know that you are capable of all of this stuff, right? Like, did they slack on teaching you chores and activities of daily living and all that kind of stuff, or were you expected to help around the house? And
I was expected to help around the house, and so my mom actually struggled with like cook some of the household chores, and cooking was a huge barrier for her. My mom is very capable and can do a lot of things. My mom's a nurse by trade. So sometimes she comes home from work and she's exhausted. Like my dad's also exhausted. He works for pay later, delivers packages, which is physically grueling. And my mom's job is more mentally grueling. So, and my dad is, so my mom's Guyanese, and my dad is has a British background. And so he was always taught, you know, you take care of your own and you do what you have to do. That mentality was driven
stiff upper
deep.
lip.
And so he would kind of cater to my mom and everyone. He's like, he would pick up the slack where she, and so when I became of age to be able to help out more, he didn't want me to also become dependent on someone else to do things. He's like, you have to know how to do X, Y, and Z, right? And I remember, and then he also put me in programs to help me, such as Girl Guides of Canada, to help me even more learn life skills.
Girl guys
He
rule.
knew he could teach me only so much, but then having it be in a fun way and interact with other girls my age that would be, because I used to have a speech impediment, so kind of do. But I was a very shy kid at moments, and so he thought that helped get me out of my shell. He was right, and helped me feel more confident in myself and my capabilities. And he also put me in karate at a young age to also help with my confidence and to feel like I was capable of doing hard things.
That's extreme. So Paul, I'm going to jump to you because Paul's managing 4 kids who are all unique individuals, right? So we can't treat one kid the way we treat our other kid, right? Um, would you say activities and expectations and whatever made a difference for your kids, Paul?
Um,
Think
Definitely.
church community and
Yeah, I mean, if you commit to something, you got to do it, right? So we always instilled that in our
Mhm.
kids. not to the point where we wouldn't let them quit things. That was a I've seen that in parents where you started this, you're going to finish it. And that's not always a healthy choice, but there's definitely a level of expectation that we tried to instill in our kids that if you've committed to doing something, and you can't just not show up. If you've decided, you've made a valid decision to not do it anymore, then you need to make sure you're not leaving somebody else in the lurch, or that you've really thought this through, and you're not just having a bad day, like that kind of thing. And chores, like and my wife's done a really good job of making sure, they have their laundry days, they have, because we have 7 people living in this house, and one washing machine, one dryer. So we have to organize laundry days and everything. Otherwise, fights ensue. Who stuffs in the laundry?
I hear that, and we've only got 4 people.
Yeah, I was like saying.
Yeah. One of the beautiful, this is kind of a funny trail, but one of the beautiful things is we just had to buy a new washer and dryer, and we got a new one we didn't pick it for this feature, but it has, it notifies us when it's done.
My dishwasher does that.
And I'll tell you.
So does my oven.
If I put something in the washing machine, it's downstairs. It's gone. Like my object permanence is, I'll forget about that for a week, right? But the fact that it messages me and says, hey, your wash is done, don't forget to move it over to the dryer. And then like a couple hours later, it'll say, here's a reminder that your wash is still there. Oh, it's brilliant. It's like,
want to do it
for ADHD people, So again, sorry about the bunny trail, but
no. Was that a Samsung?
No, it's an LG.
So so the reason I'm agreeing, I think this is a great thing to share, is one of the things that I hear constantly from the adults that we work with is they do not know at 22 plus how to do their own laundry. And part of their pushback is, remembering to switch the stuff over or whatever that is. And so to go back to Paul's original point, that in our parents' day, you just had to remember, right? Like you just had to get yelled at 10 times and remember. And now we have technology built into our appliances. I mean, my stove has an app. Like,
the future is now.
The future is crazy. And I'm a very avid baker, avid cook. I don't need an app. When my dishwasher is done, it talks to my TV and a notification comes up to say, your dishwasher's done, to which I'm like, yeah, I have kids to empty that. Or I get a notification on my phone that whatever I was cooking in the oven is, when I remember to set the timer, is done. So that's actually a huge, folks, if you're in for new appliances and you're trying to get skill sets built with your kids, my kids started doing their laundry when they were 10 and 9, roughly. And I think I've shared that story before because I was tired of hearing, I don't have any underwear. And I assumed competence and showed them how to do it, told them it would be okay if they made a mistake.
I have an interesting point to make.
Tell me.
When you're done. So, I'm the eldest daughter. I have a younger brother by 2 years. He's 26. My parents focus on him doing some chores, but some chores he doesn't do.
They're not boy chores.
But the amount of times he leaves his dishes on the counter, but he doesn't load the dishwasher, you have to prompt him constantly. And I think I'm the only one officially with a diagnosis of being neurodivergent. And I think and so my parents are so worried about me being not competent that they made me hyper competent.
which is good.
And with my brother, he's also on the spectrum, different flavor, but
Are you Rocky Road and he's vanilla?
yes. So like even my mom does his mom, I'm like, Mom, why are you doing his bed sheets?
Nay. Plus, boys are nasty.
Right? I'm just like, Mom,
Sorry, Paul.
why? And
Yeah,
she's just
boys
like,
are
oh,
nasty.
I'm like he's, and then even in his work clothes, we usually put like we do it with because he works at a grocery store and it smells like dairy, milk, and gross. And it's just like she's like, oh, you can do it. Can you do your laundry with your brother's laundry from work? I'm like, I don't want his stinky work clothes with my clothes.
Yeah, no,
And it's an interesting divide because he does do some chores, but just like there's some chores that they still do
right up
for
there
him.
yet.
And I'm just like, if that was me, that would not fly with me. They were like, you're doing it.
But
So
you
I
make
just
a
want to
really
make that point.
important point around hypercompetence because I do think I have been more aware of what could happen with Thomas if he doesn't learn those things. Right? He knows how to cook, he knows how to clean, he knows how to vacuum, he does his own sheets, he does his own laundry, he now does most of his own grocery shopping. Um, he mows the lawn, he bags leaves, he takes out the recycling, he takes out the garbage. And what's funny is that my daughter can, but doesn't.
Yep, that's exactly the point I'm making
And
about my brother.
see, so part of that is built on I've had to have, so as
And
the parent,
again, your daughter isn't diagnosed, and you have success, right? And same with my brother, right? And
no,
it's
she
just like,
can do it. She 100% can do it. It's not an excuse to do it or to not do it.
yeah,
It's just become, it's, I'm so embarrassed to say this. It's become boy work. I know certain things, but when you are a neurospicy parent of neurospicy individuals, one thing that I use now quite frequently is that at some point, like we all have an expiration date. That's my when I see parents who are creating learned helplessness and assuming incompetence and all those types of things, it's every fiber of my being not to take them aside. And sometimes it just happens and we end up having a conversation. And what tends to make an impact is I have an expiration date. At some point, my husband and I will not be here to look out for Thomas. And I have to cram as much competence in him as possible because there may be people who are involved in his life who don't have his best interests at heart. And to your point, Sydney, I don't want him being dependent on anybody, for the basics activities of daily living. Banking, he will always need help with. He deposits his own checks, he pays his own bills, all that kind of stuff. But like saving is a real challenge and what have you. Out of the grand scheme of what could be wrong, that's small on the scale. But if you happen to be listening and you're a neurospicy parent with neurospicy kids, or you're a neurotypical parent with neurospicy kids, the expiration date is the same. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I happen to be hyper aware of that because my dad died when I was 20. And it happened very early in life that I realized parents might not be there for the rest of the life. And one parent's response to me was, well, their sibling's going to take them. Like they're a rescue dog. And I just went, okay, that's definitely a conversation folks have to have. But why would you hand over a 40-plus-year-old man who can't do his own laundry when we know he can? Like you have a window here to create competence so that, if and when that happens. But what happens if sibling's not around? And
I have
now
a
this
question.
individual, yeah.
I have a question for you both as parents. So I feel like you teach your kids like the fundamentals of how to build skills and certain skills. And I think it's important that parents also teach their kids in general, not just neurodivergent children, to learn how to actively learn new skills for themselves. That's a skill within itself.
Good.
Because you brought up with Thomas how he has trouble with saving. I I taught myself how to save, but then I had the skill. So I had a finance teacher, and he was open to teaching us college students on how to save and what that looks like. And no one else was like, oh, it's fine, whatever. Like, I don't care. I was like, oh, and how to invest in the stock market. And so I had the skill to be able to feel comfortable to ask him and say, oh, this person is an expert in this, and reach out to him and be like, can you teach me how to save and how to invest? So I think even like skill stacking, or I don't know what to call it, like something on how to. So my question is to, how did you think you taught your kids that? Or have you taught your kids that? How to
Skill learning, like going and learning new stuff.
learning new stuff, building on skills, building competency, stuff like that.
Paul,
If you need me to rephrase the question, let me know.
Yeah, rephrase it. Like in what
Yeah,
context?
just like
Are you asking me or asking
like
how do you do that for your kids? Or
it could
yeah,
be
so
both.
like how, it could be both, and I think just like how like you taught your kids that if you make a commitment, how does that show up? But like how to acquire new skills, how to build on
Continuous learning.
skills. Yes,
Okay. So I think the
and how to.
context all is continuous learning and not always waiting for somebody to teach a new skill, but to recognize there's a gap and ask for help on, or just to try. Because
Mhm.
do you need to process first, Paul?
yeah, because as a parent, I think it's something that's one of the areas I've kind of fallen down in. I myself, um, I'm always trying to learn new skills, and I'm always researching, and that's part of my ADHD. I have to dive into everything,
Captain Distracted.
or hyper focused. I used to have to. I used to teach. Well, I still do actually teach CAD CAM, and I know that when we'd switch software at a company when I was working as a designer, I had to know what every button did and every function and how they worked, even if I didn't have to interact with them on a daily basis. Where other people were like, "Just show me what I need to know to get my job done." Me, I had to deep dive and I had to know exactly how the software worked. So that's intrinsically in me. Like that's the way I do things. Have I instilled that in my kids? Probably not the way I should have.
Could have.
Could have. Uh, and I think that if I look at the personality of my kids, uh, some of them do the same thing as me, and some of them are happy with knowing what they need to know and leaving the rest behind. Um, yeah, so I really can't answer that question really well.
I
I think you
think
answered it
we
okay.
undervalue. I think we undervalue passive exampling, right? So I never taught my kids to pick up a book. In that, no, I'll qualify that. There are pictures of me lying on the ground on my back with a book. My son is maybe 6 months old, and I have a book over top of his face, not smothering him like we're reading it together. Although, the other day I did threaten to duct tape and set him on fire. So it does happen. But I think we underestimate our passive exampling in that my kids, they see this, right? So they see the different tools. They see me taking courses. I went back when I was 40 to get my postgraduate in corporate communications and risk management. And I
Last
made
year?
that, pardon me?
Last year?
Smart ass. Yeah, it was a minute ago. But what I remember out of it, I did it specifically to build on skills. I have gone to college 3 times. I'm always taking courses or reading a book or whatever. I am just an inherently curious, nosy person. And I didn't consider the example that I set for my kids until I overheard my daughter sharing this particular story. And my kids, so this was, thanks, Paul, was 14 years ago. You're a jerk. And so
I was trying to give you a compliment and then you turned it around, so I had to.
Whatever. So my kids were like 12 and 13, roughly. And so they were at that age where their friends' older siblings were making decisions about university and all that kind of stuff. And they would hear the stories about university and party, uns. And my daughter had a friend say to her, oh yeah, university's all around partying and going out and whatever. And Vanessa turned on this person and she says, my mom's in college right now and there is no party, uns. There is work your ass off. My mom is at the dining room table doing her work and getting her projects done and da. She's like, you don't party uns when you're in college or university, which she doesn't know what I did the first time I went to college, but that's okay. That was my experience. And so they had that example. They have the example of my husband working full time and completing his apprenticeships and going to college as part of his apprenticeships. They see us, me in particular, reading. They see Michael consuming content through YouTube because that's what works for his neurospiciness. Mm-hmm. They see us showing up and helping neighbors and helping friends and bringing them along for those things and all that kind of stuff. So you made a really important point, Paul. With 4 kids, 2 are going to process the way you do, which is that hyper-focused, Paul and I were at a trade show, 2 months ago. And Paul started spouting off these very interesting facts about the Windsor area. And they were very niche facts, which I would say that somebody who's not familiar with the Neurospicy community would have just gone, oh, that's cool. But the more facts Paul was sharing, the more I went, Paul. And Paul has this very cute way of kind of looking sideways when he so he kind of look down and look sideways. And I went, Paul, would the history of the Windsor area be a particular interest of yours? And what Paul does when that happens is he just smiles and kind of looks and yes. So I think you probably have passed that on and set that example for your kids. I don't know that that's something that you could actively do. That example setting is the only way, right? Like to Sydney's point earlier, for my son, we did family skates on Sundays and we did family swim nights on Friday nights. And he was in Cub Scouts from Beavers until Venturers, where the leadership team wasn't equipped to handle teenage boys who decided to teach my son a lesson by, basically putting him on the ground and pummeling the crap out of him. But he went to camp and he learned that I trusted him to do well at camp. Both of my kids are excellent campers. I was a Girl Guide leader, even though I got kicked out of Girl Guides.
That's another story.
That's another story. So, sorry, my husband's coming down. I'm on a podcast. Me face. So, Sydney, to your question, how do we actively teach those things? I think it's by not assuming incompetence. I think it's by setting that example. I think it's by making sure they understand you believe they can do anything. Not anything. I'm not that kind of rosy colored glasses, but it's also the conversations you have about your kids around your kids. So to service providers, to teachers, to whatever. My kids heard me more than once go, nope, you're wrong. And don't say that about my kid ever again. So they hear us standing up for them and supporting them and believing in them, which I know, Paul, you've done on too many times to count. The only thing I would have done differently raising my kids is I would have yelled less. Because I didn't know I was ADHD, I didn't know what burnout was, I didn't know what being overwhelmed was, I didn't know sensory overload, I thought those were all autistic things, not ADHD things. And that's I feel like I created a less secure home because of losing my temper and not knowing how to deal with it better. But I also modeled accountability and apologizing. So when I stepped over the line with my kids and yelled about something or whatever it was, and then I had that moment to come down and process, I'd go back to them and go, you know what? That wasn't okay. I didn't need to lose my crap over that. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and do better. Now my daughter says, she tells her friends she had a white picket fence upbringing. So, don't know if she's forgetting the yelling. But, oh my God, that's my thing telling me to move again. Did that answer your question, Sydney?
Yes, it did. I know my question was kind of.
No, it was a good question. No, it was good. I've never thought about it as a process before. Like as an intentional act. It's part of who I am. It's part of how I was raised. I wonder with that question, do some parents assume more osmotic uptake of skills and whatever than they should? Right? And Paul would know this more than me because of 4 kids to think about. Like, are we modeling things in a less intentional way? And do we need to look at that for kids who might struggle to pick stuff up like that? Like in that osmotic way. So is modeling enough sometimes?
I think I have a little bit different lens because my son, who's also autistic, also has right hemi-CP. So he has limited use of his hand and things like that. So
CP is cerebral palsy for folks that might not know.
Right. And so I think that our training, like of our children, I don't want to use, I don't know if that's the right word, but
The right word. It is what we're doing.
Has looked different for him because we have to step back and say, what are his physical limitations? How are they going to affect what he does? Now he still shovels the grass, mows the lawn. Like those are some of his tasks, and he has to not mow the lawn. He doesn't have to do too much different, but shoveling he has to learn how to shovel a little differently than I would. He took culinary at the school, so they had to modify, knife use and make sure he was safe in certain things like that. But so I see that the way we've taught him how to do things has been a little bit different, but it's more about letting him work out how it's going to be different, but still giving him the step by step so that he can figure it out on his own.
So you haven't limited opportunities. What you've done is taught him how to accommodate within an opportunity.
Yeah, but that's one of the most difficult things as having a child with disabilities is seeing past our own limitations that we put on him.
But you're in fear because you don't want him to get hurt.
Yeah. Like, you know, he has expressed interest in trades a few times. And that terrifies me because, you know, I'm not ambidextrous, but I have two good working hands. If my right hand got injured, I could do whatever I needed to do with my left hand, and I know that my dexterity would pick up, and I could do that. Because he's doing everything with his left hand, and his right hand is a helper hand, the odds of one of the hands getting damaged or hurt would be greater for his good hand.
Especially in trades.
Yeah, and so it terrifies me that, you know, he likes to work with his hands and he wants to work with his hands. So I struggle with that a lot because I'm looking at the long-term things. If something ever happened to that good hand of his, it would be like me losing two. You know, so I kind of try and I see myself discouraging things and I probably shouldn't be. I should let my own fears, put those limitations on him. But I also know that he doesn't look at those kind of aspects either. You know, he doesn't consider
fear or reality.
No, it's definitely a reality, but I don't think I struggle because I don't know if he's going to be. He would not enjoy office work as much as he would working with his hands. So I'm struggling with that. I'm working that out. We're working that out. But I do see that. I see where parents project their limitations onto their kids, and they way overprotect them. And I think that those same parents are the same parents who don't give them chores, right? He does all his own laundry, and you know, we don't carry his laundry basket up and down the stairs. He's got to figure that out.
And that's a safe way to fail and a safe thing to try.
Yeah.
And it builds competence.
Yeah. I remember when he was really little, my parents bought us a Wii. And we were so excited about it because it was a game. It was a video game. I love video games. I'm a gamer. I love it.
No.
Not as much as I'm older, but I love retro video games still. And I remember when the Wii came out, we were so excited because it was games you could play one-handed.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I would play my Xbox, and we would set him up with the Wii, and he didn't like the Wii games. He wanted to play the Xbox games. And you should see this kid play on his Xbox. He kicks my butt on Halo or any of these types of fighting games or driving games, whatever. And how he does it is he controls the one joystick with his palm. He controls the other joystick with this finger, and these fingers do the buttons, and the other hand is just holding the controller.
So he's accommodated.
It's amazing. Like, I've looked into accommodation, like there are, like different accommodated controllers, and he's like, no, I don't need it. Now, that's not to say that, you know, the ones that are there are the accommodations aren't bad, but he himself, and I think that's because of us instilling, no, you got to try it and you got to figure it out.
Look at you, rock star.
Right. So I think that has really helped, but it's also his own determination. Like when we saw him figure that controller out, and we let him do that and let him do it that way, it was like a light bulb in our own head came on. Like, okay, so when he asks can we cut a steak for him because it's hard for him? Figure it out. Because I'm not going to be you're not going to pass your plate over to me in a restaurant
when you're 40
at 20 years old or 30 years old or whatever, right? And ask me to cut your steak. This is a skill you need to figure out. And no, you can't pick it up with your fork and gnaw on the piece of steak.
No, I'm sucking my lips in because Paul, I have shared a story where that happened.
I know I've heard that story too.
Namaste. So there's two things that popped out of that, Paul, and one was it's the balance of fear and reality, right? So the reality is we need to give our kids opportunities to fail, and small, safe ways to fail at home or adapt is where we start, because then that problem solving thinking. So that's to go back to the beginning with Sydney, the stuff that your parents encouraged you to do created problem solving skills, right? Like you explained through your journey of how you come to Burlington for, so Sydney's traveling from Markham to, or Brampton, sorry, to Burlington. And they had to problem solve around what time do I need to get up in order to make all, because the constraints are the times that the buses and the trains go. And you don't have any control over that. The only control you have over that is what time you get up in the morning, how much time you need, right? So there are days where Sydney doesn't walk as fast as other days. So they have to be prepared for that it might be a little more than 10 minutes. So knowing Sydney, how I've come to know them over the last year, they would get up a little earlier. If they're aware that that morning life's a little rough, they're going to adapt and get up a little earlier because the bus is still going, folks.
Yeah, like we were supposed to be on site this past Tuesday, and so I was planning to wake up at 4:30 because of the snow. The snow was going to be a barrier. I would have to wake up early and do it.
And we have members who were like, well, the bus was late, or the bus was this and the bus was that. And that drives me batshit, because you have control over what time you get up and what time you go and do your thing. And that is your personal responsibility. Do not ever walk into work or a commitment and blame the bus. Because if you also haven't communicated, to Sydney's point at the beginning, it still comes down to you. What we're trying to build is personal accountability through these things that we're discussing, and the balance as a parent between fear and reality. So with Paul models trades, right? So Paul is, I'm going to get it wrong. I always say it wrong. Mold maker?
I worked in the mold trades. I was a mold designer, was the last part of my trade.
He's a moldy guy. And and also a videographer, and also a creative person who, does 3D printing and all of these things that are hand tactile based. So Paul has modeled this for his son for years and years and years. And he probably has that inclination to be kinesthetic anyway. And instead of creating barriers and instead of letting fear take over, the reality is they've allowed their son to find ways to problem solve and build those skills, which will translate into post-secondary. It will translate into the workplace. It will translate into living independently. So I had fear. I packed my 7-year-old autistic son, actually he was 9 at the time because he just started medication, off to a weekend camp with 2 dudes who had no training on, how to work with a neurodivergent kid or whatever, but I had to let him go. And I let him go to more increasingly dangerous camps. And now he comes home and he tells me about when he's used chainsaws and axes at his friend's property up in Sudbury, which makes me a little crazy because my husband has been injured. He's a millwright and electrician. He's got scars on his body from, like, trades can have moments. So, but that failure, those moments where we allow failure and problem solving skills of building and all of that, builds in adaptability, builds in those skills, so that the more we do that with our kids, and even if you're late diagnosed, okay, even if you've been taught up until this point about learned helplessness, and yes, you can. You have a choice now. As soon as you're over the age of 18, you're an adult, folks. 21 in the US. I don't know what the deal with that is. But anyway, in Canada, 18, you're an adult. Fail safely. Fail often. And change your mindset around failure. Because if the first time Paul's son took the laundry basket up the stairs and it fell and all the laundry fell out, and they said, oh, no, you can't do that. We'll take care of that for you. Where would he be now? It's laundry. And Paul's house is clean. So if the clean laundry falls out of the basket, who gives a crap? Give them time, let them go pick up the laundry, put it back in the basket. That way didn't work. Or if you happen to be ADHD, you weren't keeping track of your steps, because Paul's son has to manage. Is there leg involvement as well, Paul? Yeah. So they have to manage semi-paraplegia or plegia. Am I saying it right? I don't think I'm saying it right. Whatever. Shit doesn't work. And you got to work around it. But if we don't let our kids build those skills, they lose that problem solving. They lose that self-reliance. They lose that adaptability. And we continue in fear instead of reality, which then limits opportunities as they continue to grow and want to try new things. And it can go a couple of different ways. Either you will end up with a 45-year-old lump sitting in your basement not doing anything, which I don't think anybody has a kid and goes, that's what I want for your future. Or you will end up with a kid who has a couple of scars and a couple of great stories because they've tried stuff and it hasn't worked out, so they tried again and then they succeeded. And because of that, they can now live on their own and they can work successfully. Maybe what it builds is that endless curiosity where they continuously learn and adapt. But all of that gets lost if we let fear and other people's opinions rule what we do with our kids.
If Maddie had been here for this,
They will. I think we're going to need to do this one again.
They would have had some great insight.
Well, they are also the parent of 4 individuals, and they've gone through multiple challenges. They are not feeling well today, so we are missing Buccaneer Rabbit. Buccaneer Bunny? Was it Buccaneer Bunny?
Buccaneer Bunny Trails?
Buccaneer Bunny Trails. So maybe we need to have a part 2 on this, because Paul's absolutely right that they would have had incredible insights because their parents are neurodivergent. They've had to go through a whole multiple generational journey on this. So maybe we need a part 2 is what we're saying. I think we're going to do a part 2. Any final words of wisdom, Riff Raff?
I'm good.
Done with you people. Paul gave 2 thumbs up. So thank you for joining us today. Our beginning of this conversation was around systemic challenges that happen with parents, either through outside influences where specialists, schools, whatever, tell us to keep our kids helpless. Or, it could be guilt driven. It could be a whole bunch of things driven. But we're here to tell you as a team of Neurospicy individuals that we have failed. We have failed as individuals. We have failed as parents. And we're still standing. And Paul and I have both done things with our kids that were like, that probably wasn't a award-winning moment. But our kids are happy and healthy and, great adults that are doing the best they can with what they've got. Right. Well, I know, day to day, my friend, day to day. And then Sydney is able to, what I love, Sydney, is that you're taking your lived experience as a known neurodivergent adult and paying that back to your folks and helping them figure out how they're showing up in the world.
Thank you.
That's anyway, I'm going to get a little. So thanks for joining us, folks. We've gone a little bit over, but it's an important topic and it sounds like we're doing a part 2. So I'm going to have to adjust the spreadsheet. Tell me you're neurodivergent without telling me you're neurodivergent. Spreadsheets. So exciting. Okay.
Oh, hey, next one is systemic harm, what not to do as far as schools.
Maddie's got some strong opinions. I think we all do.
It's not parent focused, it's school focused.
I think we can take a few moments to get Maddie's wisdom on the track.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Schools is a whole nother.
Yep. I think we all.
I'm going to need my brand new fidget spinner. I'm going to need a vat of thinking putty for that one. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your time, and we will talk to you soon. We are the Riff Raff podcast with Sydney
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Say something, Paul, for the people who are
Bye.
bye, and then we'll say bye from Maddie, who will join us next time. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Elizabeth Blue from Spiro Canada, one of your pirates on the Riff Raff podcast team. My fellow pirates include Maddie Dever from Autistic Bridge, Sydney Elaine Butler from Accessible Creates, and Paul Coleman from Creation Designs, who is our very own Arctic LARPing Santa. Thank you for joining us on the Neurospicy Seas, and we wish fair winds to you all.